there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. So today's video is around one of those crafty hacks, those crafty cheats that I love to use, and I love all of these little tips, so I thought that I would share this one with you. It's not brand new, but this is one that I think I often forget about and is really worthwhile remembering, because boy does it make life easier when it comes to looking like something is done quite tricky, but actually it's really simple. So I'm starting off today and I have got the Pink and Main Leafy dies number 1. Now there are 2 dies in the set. It's kind of a layering set. I'm only going to use 1 today. But of course you should have a search through your stash and see what you have that might be something similar. Now there are a couple of different embossing pads here. Now these are the kind of flexible rubbery sort of embossing pads that I put in. One is the Cuttlebug brand and the other one I think is just a generic brand, the smaller tan mat. Now they are very different thicknesses, and this is the reason that I keep both of them to hand, because embossing folders these days and even dies can have such a difference with thickness that I find I often use both of these. Now with these Pink and Main ones I just need the really thin one, so if you don't have that flexible embossing mat, then I would suggest that you could get away with a couple of copy sheets of paper and just fold them in half and pop those through as a shim, and I think this would work pretty much the same. Now the reason here is that this is obviously a die and I do not want to die cut my paper, so I don't want a solid surface underneath. I want something that is squishy that it's going to cut into, so you'll have to see if you use the shim if it ends up die cutting or if it ends up giving you this impression like I have here. Now because of my lighting it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to see, but I have picked out 3 of my alcohol markers. Now these are the Spectrum Noir TriBlend markers, and I know this is a little bit hard to see because it doesn't focus, but it's the True Blue blend, the Citrus blend and the Purple blend are the ones that I'm going to use on my card today. I know I've said this lots of times, but I prefer these alcohol markers because alcohol markers is not my method of coloring that I think I am best at. It makes me a little bit nervous, but I try my best. And you can see here that with these markers I'm going to go just inside the outside line. Does that make sense? Just inside of the outside impression, so that I am going to be inside of the die when I place the die cuts down. So it's going to look messy to begin with, I promise, but if you just color inside the lines basically, and here is where you get to see the 3 colors that are all in the one barrel of the alcohol marker, and this makes my life easy because I don't have to test out and see which colors are going to go together. Are they going to be close enough to blend? Are they going to blend well? Are they, I don't know, all the same sort of tones? I mean, it's just something that I am not very good at, so these markers help me. I purchased the Essential set, which I think has 24 in it. I purchased it a few years ago and I certainly have never run out of a color. I use them reasonably often. I've not ruined any of the nibs or the tips. I've not had any of those issues, so I think that for me that was a fantastic investment, and it is the only alcohol markers that I have because I just find that that works best for me. So if it's something that you have trouble with, they obviously have the bullet tip nibs, and they also have a grey set which is the brush tips. I prefer the bullet nibs just for the types of colouring I do, but in case brush tips are your thing and that's your preference, then they have those too. Now I have a few of these that are just kind of sticking out, so they're just partial images. That's okay too. I wanted to fill up my background and I'm going to leave that for just a second to do some die cutting. Now these are Stick It adhesive sheets. I've tried a few of the brands out there that are used for die cutting, and I keep coming back to this one. I think this is probably my favorite. These are very, very thin, wafer thin adhesive sheets that you can put on the back of something. So they're kind of double-sided. You take off one side of the release paper and put it down on the back of your project, then do your die cutting, and then when you have your die cuts they are essentially stickers, and you can just peel off the other side of the release paper and you have permanent adhesive. So I don't use these all the time. Obviously these are the ones that I have found are most cost effective for me. I do pick and choose when to use them because obviously I have lost all the insides of these. Now as a side note, I actually kept all the insides because I have another plan for those, but I mean obviously I'm not using them on this project. But it does make this part really, really easy, because all I have to do here is I just use this little pokey tool. The pokey tool I use is from Kaisercraft. I think it's less than $2 US for this one, and it is good. It is really good. Actually, my friend Nicole purchased this one for me, and it has been a lifesaver. So I love this one. Now I just kind of use it to pick up the release paper from the backs of the adhesive, and then I'm going to save all these little pieces so that I can put them together and fill in just those little corners where they are. But this makes our colouring look like we were colouring inside the whole time. It almost makes it look like it's die cut inlay, but without spending the time doing the inlay. So I really, really like this technique. It's definitely worth remembering that all you have to do is make the impression with the die, and then use the actual die to do one die cut, and you can cover it up. Now I chose to do white today. I'm going for a really clean and simple sort of look, but you could obviously do it in like glitter cardstock or something like that, or even a dark blue or something that would give it a real bit of pizzazz. Now I think I mentioned recently that I was looking for a little bit of something to add around the edges of some of my very simple cards. Now this is the Elegant Twist Rectangles, and I actually purchased one other one as well. I think it might be a Spellbinders set that you've already seen in previous videos that is for this purpose. I just want something in my card making to jazz up the edges just a little bit, because I do a lot of very clean and simple cards, and I think it's important to have something going on around the edge sometimes when I think it is going to enhance the card. Sometimes I just like a really clean cut edge with a trimmer, and I think that looks really fine. The other tool that I use sometimes is the corner rounder, and again that adds one more thing, but this is kind of taking it a whole nother step further. So I did choose to invest in a couple of these, and so far I am loving them. I think I purchased 2 different kinds, and this one is the Elegant Twist Rectangles, and so I'm going to use this in a few ways, but you'll see today I'm really going to use it for the centerpiece only, and not going all the way around the edge. However, I could have done that. I just didn't want to cover up so much of my die cutting and my colouring, so I wanted to leave that bit in. But anyway, I have stuck a couple of these together. I'm popping this through with some vellum. This is the Lawn Fawn vellum, and then I also am going to use that very centerpiece and then cut that out on a little piece of white cardstock, just a little piece of white scrap that I had there. And I like how you can kind of layer these together. This set is actually very cool. Once I sort of got it and had a play with it, I figured out there's lots of different combinations that you can put together. So I was having fun the other day. I have a few videos coming up where you're going to see this one, that's for sure. But anyhow, you can see it leaves that really nice sort of, looks like a rope almost to me, tangled around the edges. And I'm going to use that with the vellum and then stamp onto the center little piece that we've already die cut. Now this one is from the Happy Birthday Sentiments from Pinkfresh Studios. I'm going to take out a couple of these. They have lots of main sentiments and then little sub sentiments that you can put down underneath or a little bit below. So I picked out a couple of them. I'm stamping them in some VersaFine Onyx black ink, a nice crisp black stamping ink, and it's going to be perfect for this. I do like, when I haven't used the stamp before, I do like to stamp it off just once or twice to make sure that there's no manufacturing, inequalities or anything like that, mistakes or mishaps, or just even my ink or anything like that that isn't going to gel nicely before I put it onto my die cut piece. So then I can line up these two, and coincidentally they fit really nice together. So I'm going to pop both of these on. I am often quite a stickler for doing things the same way that suits me or works well, but I mean, looking back, it could have been really nice to have used a deep purple ink, or maybe something that matched the background, that I had a color that had matched the background to stamp out the sentiment. But I do like my black, my VersaFine Onyx black ink for stamping those out, but I think it looks fine as well. So I have put a little bit of foam tape on the very back of this, but I did use just some normal double-sided tape to adhere the white piece down to the vellum. I prefer to use double-sided tape when it comes to adhering things to vellum. I feel like I get much better success rate than using liquid glue. Maybe, yeah, any type of dry glue is going to work probably better for that, and it also decreases the chance of the vellum wrinkling at all if you add wet media. Now here, this is the part which is always a little bit hard sometimes if you like the whole background, but I trim down just a tiny bit, and here you can see I'm doing my little tricks where I cut it down, then I add the rounded corners just when I'm not going to do anything else fancy around the outside. I could have used one of the two border dies that I've purchased recently, but as I said, it's perfectly fine to do it this way, and I don't need to do it all the time as well. Then I add some nice strong double-sided adhesive on the back. This one happens to be the scrapbook.com one, just because I like the fact that I can tear these adhesives, so that does make it a little bit easier for me, just something a little bit quicker. And then I'm going to pop this down onto my card base. My card base is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches, and as I said, I've got a little bit of dimension behind the sentiment, so I didn't want any dimension going straight down onto this card here. If you wanted to, you could add something around the border to help it stand off from the white on white with the card front to the card base, but this doesn't bother me at all. And then all I have to do is pop my little sentiment straight there on the front. And I know it's a little bit hard to see, but those leaves are really well defined since we put the die cuts on top. So this is such an easy technique that I need to remember. It feels like a cheat. It feels like if you colored inside the lines really neatly when in reality we just got to go over it pretty fast, pretty speedy. The whole coloring of the whole background took me way less than 5 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and I had the background colored with that gorgeous ombre colors, and then that is our card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're looking for the links to any of the products I've used today, they are always down below, as well as the links to the Buy Me a Coffee if you would like to support my channel and these videos coming out every second day. Other than that, thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye!